I'm hoping that this is a a good stream. So anyway, hopefully you guys will come tune in shortly. I'll just wait for a few people to come onto the live stream and go from there. So let's just sort that out. I don't know if you guys are aware, but if you're over in the US, the internet here in Australia is pretty terrible. So it's kind of like trying to weed through the issues that you have with the internet alongside of technical issues that you face. Anyway, so we'll just wait for some people to come back into the live stream. So what I might do is run this for maybe about half an hour or so. And if you guys have questions or comments or whatnot, please put them into the comments so that we can address, or I can address those with you guys, those places. But what I was talking about in the live stream was a couple of things. So I had a Q&A more or less about mixing, mastering, EQ, compression, all of that stuff to do with mixing, other stuff to do with label questions, and also just general stuff about working with artists and things like that. So all sorts of questions can come in here. Whatever you have, just hit me up. Also, let me know what you want to see in on my channel, I should say, what kind of content you want to see, what things you'd like addressed as far as mixing, mastering, beat making, tutorials, all that stuff. Anything that you guys have that might be of a benefit to you. So the live stream, generally, I don't do this at all. So that's probably why I had some technical issues before, because I don't generally do a lot of live streaming. I really tend to just do the content production for upload on YouTube. So anyway, if you guys are just tuning in, let me know where you're from. And also, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's actually really rewarding to help you guys and help you progress and help you be better at mixing, mastering, production, all that stuff that comes with music. I really benefit just by watching that and teaching people. I really enjoy that a lot. So if you're just tuning in, let me know where you're at. I'd be really great to know. I think it's about 12 o'clock in the US, 12 p.m. I should say. And here in Australia, it's about 2 p.m. So if you're in the US, you're up really late. I don't know why you'd be wanting to watch this sort of stuff. You should be sleeping. But anyway, if you are tuning in, that's awesome. So anyway, we've got a mix here, which I was talking about before the live stream cut out. And I'll leave this up on YouTube, so if any questions are asked, that hopefully people can get them answered by watching this video after the fact. So let's go through the mix. I might play it if you are watching and you weren't here before. Let me just play the mix so you can hear what this sounds like. So let's go.
And I won't give up, I won't stop. You're my beauty to rescue, and it's not enough if you don't have my all. You're my beauty to rescue. And though you say it's far too late, you couldn't go back now. Our God, He knows how much we can take. His grace is how, and I won't give up.
Okay, so that's the basics of the mix. If you can hear, it sounds quite good, like the levels are quite balanced. And all of this was done previously in another project, which I'll cover in another video in the next coming live streams. But what I want to discuss with you guys is go over some of the basics as far as the mixing and the mastering of this project. There's a lot to do with mixing and mastering, or as far as the mixing side of it at least anyway. There's a lot of stuff that happened before it actually got into this project. So you tend to receive projects from other people, and when you do get them, they usually have their own EQs and compression, all that sort of stuff already thrown on the track. And sometimes it's difficult to work with because they've already put too much high end or too much low end, or all that stuff that people tend to do that they're not aware of when they're mixing the track. And then they'll submit that track to you, and you'll be stuck with whatever they've got. So I want to look at this mix like that because of the fact that I already had it in another project inside of Logic. So let's go through, which I kind of covered off in the other parts of the live stream that I had. Let's go through some of the mixing techniques on this and cover off some of the EQ and compression. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comments section, and we can address those as well. So first off, I'll start with, I think I finished with the gate, and I was talking about gates. So I might actually go with that side of it too and just talk about the gate. So this is a drum section here. I'll just go back to the project. So you can see these two tracks here. These are the drums that I've got, and I try to color code stuff for the most part as much as I possibly can to remember where they're at, and then I don't have to go fiddling around looking for it. It does help out with, you know, obviously addressing the mix as well. So if you're just tuning in, thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. It's also awesome to have you guys as well. So anyway, covering off the drums. So first off, what I did with the mix to get the drums to the way that they are, I'll just quickly play it as well because I just got somebody else that tuned in as well. So let me just play the mix just quickly.
And I won't give up, I won't stop. You're my beauty.
Okay, and we'll isolate these drums and just show you what they sound like on their own. So I've got them going to a bus, and it's being summed out of my audio interface and then into the project back again for recording. So let's just play these drums and see what they sound like on their own. Okay, so you'll notice the gate that I've got here. Basically, what a gate does, if you're not familiar with what a gate is or what it does, it works to silence or nullify a sound at a certain attack, release, and threshold setting. So the gate opens, it's just like a door basically. So you're closing or opening the door, allowing it to be the sound to go through, and then you're cutting it off when you close the door. So pretty much just the same thing. It's just, that's why they call it a gate, I guess. So when I looked at this track, I got the drums and I was working with the drums, and in my head, I wanted the drums to be a bit more isolated. So I applied the gate, and the way I did that was just by using the attack and release settings of the actual track itself. So I was working off the sound of the drums just being isolated when the hi-hat hit, and especially also when the kick drum hit. So it allowed me to kind of get rid of some of the sound that was in there. So if you look at, I'll just zoom in on this file as well. So if you look, there's a lot of stuff that kind of sits lower down in the mix, and it kind of just hit the tip of that. So the hi-hats and stuff like that just came through, and then it would silence the rest of the track when it was, well, you know, throughout that being played. So that it kind of gives you a bit of, I guess, more movement in the track, and as well it gives you silence so that other things can sit in that space. So it's super useful to have a gate. It could be on a vocal, it could be to isolate other things in the room. So especially when you're recording drums, you might have a drummer like in the corner, like banging away on the drums, and you got the vocalist in the same room, especially with live sets, and then you have them singing, and you can hear the drums in the background, and that's being recorded into the microphone that the singer's singing into. So gates are useful in that instance as well. You know, you could use a gate on anything. So this situation, I just wanted to apply the gate. The drums weren't recorded in the live set. That's not why I used it, but I used it to create rhythm in the track so that the drums kind of played through. So this section here, if I just go back up to the compressor and to show you that. So I've got the compressor set here. The compressor is pretty much using a 3.4:1 ratio, and I'm using a bit of input gain, and then the attack settings are quite fast, and release is quite quick for release on a compressor. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in if you're watching as well. I just got somebody else that joined the live stream, so I really appreciate it. Anyway, so the knee on this is basically, if you just look at this section here, this curve section is what they call a knee on the compressor. So if you're familiar with the compressor, awesome. If you're not, that's basically what this controls here. So you can make this a little bit more rounded off or more sharp. So it just basically allows the signal to be compressed a little bit closer to where the knee hits, versus if you're just turning it like that, where it's going to just hit here like more of a limiter. So that's what that does. The threshold, everybody generally knows what a threshold is, but if you don't, this just allows you to pull down the compressor where it hits the signal or whatnot. The next thing is the ratio, so that's how much compression, and then the attack and release, all that stuff. So I use this compressor. I'll just isolate. Let's just quickly move that out of the way for a second. I'll just get rid of that one. So I'll just play the drums and I'll show you what's happening with the compressor and then without it. And if you guys have any questions, make your comments down in the comment section. I'll answer them via this video or in the comment section below the video after it's finished. Either way, if you have comments after the fact, you can ask them as well, and I'll try to get back to you guys as fast as I can. So let's go with the compressor, have a listen to the drums, and play that out. And we'll turn the compressor off. So you can see how the compressor is kind of limiting the way that the track is. It's basically just acting like more of a leveler, like a leveling compressor. So I'm using that on the settings. So you can see here I've got look ahead function, so it's allowing the compressor to attack the signal straight away, and then obviously it's compressing it by that 3.4 to 1 ratio, and then input gain, I'm just using that so that I'm actually getting the level that I want, and I'm not making up any gains. So it's basically just bringing down the level of the drum kit for me without me having to do it by using the automation or whatnot. So that's really handy to be able to do that and use a compressor in that way. The next thing then, if I just move this out of the way, is an EQ. A lot of people ask about EQ or compression, or which one should you use first, or how do they go before or after. I just think whatever sounds the best to you. Don't use it by rule of thumb. Don't just think if this guy's using EQ before the compressor or after the compressor, it must be right. Whatever sounds good in your track, that's what you should do. So the EQ after the compressor on this one, I'll just bring that up so you can see. So I'm using a bit of a filter here to cut off some of the lows there, and I'm using some of this to cut out the 100, which is just getting rid of some of that stuff that I didn't want in the mix. And I'm using more of a shelf kind of look-alike thing here. It's not a shelf, but it's obviously just a bell filter. I've just widened it up, and I'm reducing the volume in all of this area here, and that's pretty much it for the drum kit. So it's pretty useful to use EQ to get out the frequencies that you don't want there and allow obviously the rest to be in there and work like that. Next thing is the multi-band compressor, which I've got here. I'm using this again as a volume control dial, and each band is isolated doing its own thing, which you guys probably know what a multi-band compressor is, so I don't need to explain that too much, hopefully. If not, I'll just quickly go over it. So it's basically each frequency sits in its band, and you've got all of these bands to work with. So there's 4 bands in total, and you can obviously adjust each one individually. So I've got, for this one, I've got minus 2 to 1 ratio, and I've got 2.1 ratio on that frequency there, and 2 on that one, 3.1 on that one because I want to reduce some of the mid lows, and about 3.7.1 on that one as well. So kind of handy to be able to use multi-band compression to get the right sound in your mix. And as you can hear, the drums sound quite balanced, so that's really useful in that regard. Final thing is a limiter. So I'm using this as soft clip. So soft clip is basically just preventing anything going over, so the peaks that are happening on the drum kit, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second, but when I play it, you'll see this meter kind of minus by about 2 or so dB, so it allows the peaks to be cut at that level. So let's just play the drums and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So basically it's not actually even clipping because it's at minus 12, but what you would do normally is you would push the input up here if you wanted to get to the level where it clips, or you can bring down the ceiling here. So I'll just show you what I'm talking about on that. So you can see now it's starting to minus by 1.8 roughly. It sometimes gets more than that. It really depends on where the ceiling hits. But that's pretty much like your control over how much you have on the transients, where they poke through the limiter, or I should say the soft clipper at this stage. But that allows you then to put other things in the mix, and it frees up some space as far as headroom with the mix as well. So sometimes I just apply that just so I've got a bit more extra headroom in the mix, and it also controls the peaks of the drum kit so it sounds not so piercing to the ear when you're mixing the drums as well. So that's a little tip that you can use on the mix as well with your drums, or you can even use it on vocals or whatever you want to put it on as well. So that's super handy. The next thing then, mainly when I'm looking at mixes, I try to get my drums to sit best as possible for the mix first. I think the drums are usually the driving force for any mix most of the time. There also has vocals and stuff. That really depends on what kind of mix that you're working on. But if you have drums that are driving the track, then you really want to get those to sound right and then kind of blend everything else around it as well. So that's a tip there for sure. If you're looking at getting a solid mix, build the first or 2 or 3 instruments that you feel like are driving the track, and make sure you focus on those to build those to the best of your ability, and then put everything else kind of around it so it works together as a mix. Again, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. I'm definitely happy to answer any questions that you have, even if it's not related to this. It could be about production, it could be about working with artists, it could be to do with working with a label. A lot of my tracks I get through a label, so I have a lot of experience with working with that general stuff as well. So anyway, what I'll do is I'll create probably another couple of tutorials. If you have any other things that you want to see in tutorials, let me know. I'm going to try and get a poll so I can get you guys to answer questions like that, and build on the best things that I can to produce content that's rewarding and obviously teaches you guys stuff as well. So I definitely want to be able to do that and give you the best knowledge and information available that I'm able to produce for you. So this track then finally, once it's all summed down here, so whoop, I didn't mean to do that. So once I've got the summing happening here, so I talked about it in the previous live stream that I had. I use a summing mixer to send all of my tracks to. So I'll just raise this up here and show you what I'm talking about here. Covered this off. So I have an instrument section here. So all of the instruments go into one bus here. All of the drums go into the next. So I've got drums here, and then the Vox, which is the vocals. I use that to go on another bus. And then finally, when you see the last part here, I've got the effects. So any of the sends that I've got here, so I could have reverb, parallel compression, whatever it might be. If I'm using it in the mix, you've got all of that stuff available. So all of the sends are in that section. I'll just bring that down a bit. So you can see all of the sends here. They go into my effects section here. So room, reverb, and beat delay. So that's the sections there that I use to send through all the buses. So I've got delay on this part with an EQ on it as well. I tend to use EQ and compression on the reverb because I don't want some of the high-end frequencies in there, and I don't want the low-end frequencies tying up some of the sides, so the side information. Actually, let me just explain to you guys what I'm talking about with the side information, if you're not familiar with all of that. So let's just bring this EQ here just for the sake of it, and I'll go through some of this so you understand what I'm talking about. So the EQ in front of you guys is the Ozone. It's Ozone Advanced. It's basically an EQ that's within the mastering suite that they make. So this is the Ozone 8, and it allows you to do mid-side processing with EQ just inside the EQ. You can do this inside Studio One as well, which I'll show you if you don't know how to do that. But it's like, make comments in the comment section as well so I can help you out with that. But basically it allows you to split the mids. So the mids are the mono section, and then the sides are the stereos, so it could be left and right. So stereo meaning anything that's like reverb or delay, or anything that sits on the sides that you put on the sides. Like you can set delay in mono if you want as well, but you can put it on the sides where generally it mostly sits, and you can EQ out all of that stuff below there or above, obviously, if you want to get rid of it, like a top shelf there, all of that sort of stuff. So it allows you to do that in the actual plugin. What I normally do though, if I'm not using that plugin, is inside of Studio One, it's got a tab down. Actually, I'll just bring this up here to bring it back up. So it's got this little section here. So if you just hit that little thing that looks like a clock, that brings up this box here, and then it brings up another section which you go to this little tab here. It's like a little scales type thing, and you can put a splitter in here. So basically, if you just drag this splitter down onto the channel, you can actually split your channels to be mid and side. So I've got a tutorial on my channel about this, so if you want to check it out, go and have a look at that. But this is the way you have to currently do it inside of Studio One if you're not using other plugins that do it for you. I might, if you ask me in the comments, obviously I can show you now, but otherwise I don't want to take up too much time showing you guys how to do that. So anyway, so I use mid-side processing a lot of the time. It could be on my sends, so if I use it on the actual send here for reverb, I currently didn't because I got rid of just the stereo amount here. So I used the high cut or a low cut filter, whatever you want to call it. So low cut, and I got rid of some of the mids here and some of the highs as well. So it allowed me to kind of just sit the reverb in the section of the track where I wanted it. And it also frees up space for when you actually master the track later on as well. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, what I'll do is continue on with another video in the next day or two. I'll do a live stream probably sometime in the morning, so it actually reaches the guys in the US as well, because it's hard to kind of work around the time frames and stuff like that for you guys over in the US. But what I'll do is a tutorial on how I master a track, and you guys can see a step-by-step process on what I do, how I go about it, and kind of cover off some of the basics and the skills that are required in that sort of realm of things. If you have any other questions, obviously make them in the comments below when I list this video up on my channel. Otherwise, I will hit you guys up with a second live stream on the Saturday, which would probably be Friday in the US, and I shall catch you guys then. If there's any other comments before I go, let me know so I can answer them now. Otherwise, forever hold your peace until the next live stream, and we'll cover them off there about the mastering side of things. So I'll catch you guys on the next one. I'll give you a couple more seconds to ask questions. Otherwise, I shall see you later. Any questions? No questions? All right, awesome. So catch you all on the next one. Peace out as always, and see you guys later.